Michael caught himself a fisher. He was almost caught himself, but there begins our tale. Because in the process, he learned those first lessons of how we protect ourselves in a professional environment. This is David Allen Greer for the Errant hashtag. Here's how the story begins. My student Michael, who has a security clearance far beyond anything that I can imagine, decided that he wanted to visit a friend at a secure government installation. He used a search engine to find the form he needed to complete and started entering his personal and security information. Before he finished it, something caught his eye. Something made him feel that something was wrong, and he looked closely at the URL. Instead of ending as any government URL should end, .gov, that's the US government extension, this one ended with a two-letter code that was from a foreign country, a country that has been associated with cyber attacks, attacks against financial institutions, against the military, even against retailers and a certain movie studio. If Michael had pushed that final return key, he would have sent his personal and his security information off into the hands of a dubious power. At this point, Michael faced a new version of the problem that he had just solved. He had shown that a page was untrustworthy. He now needed to demonstrate that he was professionally trustworthy, that his opinion about this web page was more important, more valid, than the fact that it had come up with a top page ranking by a major search engine. The technical problem behind this is, of course, how do you identify a fraudulent URL without either clicking on it or going to a trusted third party for verification? Both of those two solutions have problems. Clicking on a URL, if it's fraudulent, that can be suicidal. Third parties, it adds an overhead, and of course third parties can be spoofed. So right now, the best research is looking at the structure of the URL itself and trying to learn from that whether it is legitimate or not. Most fishers add little bits of baits, words, to suggest that the URL is legitimate. eBay, PayPal, Amazon. But of course it has to put these words near the HTTP, not near the top-level domain. The top-level domain is something it's more or less stuck with, and in general, it does not reflect the organizations that it is trying to spoof. So our best research and our best algorithms right now are trying to take apart a URL, compare the top-level domain with the material in the middle, and from that, determine if the URL is likely fraudulent or likely legitimate. Without professional standing and without a reputation for trustworthiness, Michael needed nearly a full week to solve the problem. The first few days of that week were spent on the phone with customer service reps at the search engine. They were lovely people, kind, polite, attentive, but they measured their success by their ability to keep people like Michael away from their boss. Eventually, and against great odds, he was able to talk with the head of security for the search engine. He listened and agreed there was a problem and promised a solution. A few days later, the web page was gone. It could not be found with the search engine. There was no announcement. No one knew who had identified it and brought it to people's attention. No one knew how many government employees were saved from sending their personal information to a distant and hostile power. In developing a theory of trustworthy computers, we have learned that trust in a machine is quite different than trust in a person. Computers are, in theory, created in a state of trustworthiness, and they have to maintain it. They have to maintain it against the software that changes their state, adds data, adds code that alters the reliability of the system. By contrast, people are born to a state of innocence, but innocence is not the same thing as trust. They have to demonstrate their trustworthiness. They have to demonstrate it through their work, their character, their reputation. Sometimes you can inherit just a little bit of trust from an advisor or a mentor or a situation, but such inheritances are short-lived and rarely amount to much. Michael demonstrated his trustworthiness, at least a little bit, when the head of security for the software search engine came to his university to give a talk and shocked the faculty by asking to meet with a master's student that none of them really knew. It was a little bit of information, just a little bit of a hook, that taught them that this was someone different than what they suspected, that he had demonstrated something, that he was, in the professional world, trustworthy, at least a little bit. This is David Alan Greer for the Errant hashtag. Take care.